Oh, okay.
That's the back. That's the front.
Ito ba sa pangalaga? I was over the rock.
You might have to get it.
No, it's dirty. Look where I am. You can't go there. You're a baby. Yeah, that's that. Why do you keep doing that?
Probably because you're sweet driving. The one I'm pointed at with the camera. Try and go up at it. Go slow, but go yeah, go slow, but
I'll come back now.
yeah.
Cars.
Car.
Oh, I scratched it.
It's gonna scratch. That's the whole point. Back up. I'm gonna try something. I want to get the camera on. I'm gonna try something.
That's so much hair. Nose and mouth.
Suspension's too stiff.
straps on GoPro?
I said I don't see any. making for your car. So come down here. So wherever I go, just keep following me.
Get in front of me. I'm not that good. Hey, let's just... Hey, go somewhere that I can be behind you. I'm nervous. that one's a big one for me. I'm not that sure. So, take your car down. Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna go down the stairs.
Yeah, yours can go downstairs. Mine can't. It's probably better that yours does. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, let's go downstairs.
That's one method.
Probably that's the only method.
I don't think you're certified for driving downstairs.
Let me hold your car and you drive down the stairs. Okay.
Let me get a video of the broken wheel.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Where's it?
Sorry.
Wheel brake.
Totally broken.
Yeah.
Oh, I can take the spider thing off. Right? It's a sticker.
GoPro, stop recording. All right, here's my basic review of the Force RC Hammerjaw. I'm going to start with the pros. Price, $130, which I think originally started out closer to $200, which honestly I think is pretty amazing. I haven't seen anything even come close to this price range for what all you actually see here. I mean, full scale, straight axle, crawler, 2.4 gigahertz radio, even comes with a 6-cell nickel metal battery, and the little, trickle wall charger. That's pretty amazing what you get for $130. The overall suspension and chassis are fairly well designed as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just the typical tried and true, 4-link front and rear suspension with the servo mounted on the front axle. Haven't had any issues with any of that. The chassis is kind of interesting. It's basically like a twin vertical plate chassis, but it's composed of actually 6 pieces instead of 2. If you look here, you'll notice that the side plates are staggered out, and then the nose and tail are stepped in. There's spacers in between here, and basically just makes for like a staggered chassis, but for the most part it's a twin vertical plate chassis. The looks are pretty good. You get little driver figures, couple little basic scale details in the back, nothing crazy, but it's a decent looking truck for, I mean, definitely for the price range. I mean, it literally, it comes with everything. There's nothing you even need to add. Yeah, it even came with the AA's for the transmitter. I mean, you were literally out of the box. You charged the nickel metal, and you're out the door. And fairly cheap transmitter, but one thing I'll give it, I mean, it feels good. Decent steering wheel. Little antenna on it. I kind of wish they wouldn't even have put this little snout on it and just kept everything inside, because it's a trail truck, and you're going to be within 10-15 feet of this thing pretty much all the time. So range isn't really an issue, and when you're walking around on trails, it's just you're there's always the possibility of tripping and dropping a radio and breaking an antenna, but with how small and sturdy this thing is, I highly doubt you're ever going to break that. So I'm going to say that's a plus. And on a lot of cheap RTRs, one of the biggest problems I've seen with the radios is, especially when they put this little door on it, the door, you feel like you're going to break it every time you open it, because you open it up and it jams against the case or something, and it's always just a fight. This one opens really smoothly. You got your on and off, and you know, all your reversing, your dual rates. It's all there. I kind of wish the on and off switch was external, but with how easy this is to open, I'm going to say it's perfect. You should be fine with this. I wish they'd given it a third channel so you could have optional light switching or add winch controls or whatever, but like I said, it was $130. Let's see here. I'm going to go to the cons. There is one major con with this truck. When they were engineering the front axle, they chose to go with the dog bone style shaft. And I have the replacements here, which I'll go into why I have to have replacements. So it's this style of a dog bone shaft that goes into this, the C little cup drive shaft output to the front tire, the front axle. Problem is the way they engineered this front axle, it seemed like they were basically trying to get the absolute maximum allowing steering radius out of the front axle, which I can appreciate, but that is not a dog bone's strong suit. So right out of the box, if you do nothing and drive it as it is, almost everybody I have talked to has broken a drive shaft on the very first run of this truck. The problem is it steers so far that the actual drive cup, as it turns, actually starts cutting into the actual narrow spot of the drive shaft right here, of the axle shaft, and actually starts to cut it, basically lathe it down while you're driving, until it gets so thin it comes to the point that it just snaps off. Most manufacturers that have done similar setups usually build some sort of axle, steering limiting built into the axle, so that your steering knuckle actually, touches, plastic touches plastic to limit the thing from going to an angle that the actual mechanics just can't handle. They did not do this. So yeah, I even went on Amazon and there's only one review for this truck. And this was after I had already broken it. And the review it was 1 star. He was really upset. But basically his only comment was that he broke drive shafts right on the first drive. So, I read around and I kind of came up with the same thought on it. Mechanical limiting would be better, but the transmitter out of the box does have steering dual rate control. So what I would recommend anybody that buys this brand new is to get it up on top of something so you can run it with with all the tires going freely. Turn the steering dual rate pretty far down, and then keep pulling the trigger and keep turning up until you start to either hear the contact of the dog bone going into the cup hitting inappropriately, or until you actually start to see a hint of scratching right here on this area. And that's where the problem starts, and then back it off a little bit from there. This is what I'm going to attempt. I have not yet, but I will be posting a follow-up video to see if that fixes most of the problems. Like I said, mechanical limiting would be better, but as long as you have your trim pretty well centered on the front steering and then have the dual rate set to that, I have a feeling you will be okay. Ideally, and it looks like there's enough room in that drive cup area, ideally they would come out with a universal drive shaft set for this. I've had much better luck. Either that or a CVD style drive shaft or, axle shaft for the front. I've had much better luck with those on scale trucks. The CVDs I don't think I've ever worn out a set of CVDs. and the only set of universals I ever wore out had an amount of runs on them that is just not even feasible for most people. So like either I think would be a great upgrade, but due to the price point of this truck, I highly doubt there's going to be a huge aftermarket for this vehicle. And trying to find maybe an axle set from a different vehicle, I mean, it's a 1 in a million shot, but I've seen certain things line up where people find out that the axles from a different brand do tend to fit with minimal modification, which would be amazing. But that has to be taken care of. Don't even attempt to drive this truck until you've addressed that out of the box. You will break parts on your first run if you do, as you saw in the running video. I wasn't even 100% sure what was going on. We just noticed the truck it wasn't keeping up with the other truck, and then a couple minutes later we realized we were in 3-wheel drive. So that is not good. My secondary beef, and I was kind of surprised that they did this, because early on in the whole crawling world, and I've been doing this since before you could buy a crawler, to where you had to buy other trucks to get axles of and build your own chassis and stuff. I've been doing this forever. And in the early days, one of the biggest annoyances was the drive shafts on the bottom. The drive shafts where they connect to the axle and connect to the transmission transfer case setup. Axial started the earlier, yeah, there's my 3-wheel drive, by the way. The earlier axial trucks, the early SCX-10s and AX-10s also had this same design, and they got away from it because it's a nightmare and it fails continuously on the trail, and it's just frustrating because there's depending on what tools you brought with you, a lot of times you're done for the day. The drive shafts are mounted with a set screw to a flat spot on the shaft that goes into the differential and into the transmission. Axial had a bunch of problems with this because they always work loose, and then your drive shaft comes off or starts spinning and starts gouging into the axle. Almost every single manufacturer has stepped up and realized that they need a through pin. The pin here is actually not just a set screw, but also a straight pin that goes all the way through and comes out the other side. You will notice that the other side is flat on this. It's not drilled, nothing. It's literally just a small set screw that goes on. And with this taking hits from rocks, just the torque of going over stuff, and then especially when you're bucking and bouncing going over stuff, these work loose. And I haven't had it come loose yet because I have limited runs on this truck, but it's going to be a problem. It never isn't. Wasn't really happy about that. Another con, nothing major. This is just kind of, I don't know, pet peeve for me. Another con is a lot of the hardware is Phillips head. I really wish they would have stepped up and used some hex drive M3 hardware. It's just not that expensive, and this Phillips screw stuff is just too likely to strip out. Whereas if you're using decent tools with the hex hardware, you're almost never going to have a problem. But there is a lot of hex hardware, but too much Phillips hardware for my liking. Honestly, I mean, obviously most of it could be swapped, but a lot of it is, plastic style screws that are meant to thread into plastic. So trying to find all the hex hardware that's meant to thread into plastic isn't always that easy. It does exist, but probably isn't going to be a problem for most. Just when you're using it, use a decent quality screwdriver, and you probably won't have a problem. But I would have much preferred to see that go the other way. Okay, this is another one, and I get it. It's $130. But manufacturers, please stop doing this. I would have paid an extra $20 to cover the difference. Stop making ESC receiver combos. The drag brake and everything seems to work great on the ESC. I had no problems with radio control. It works. Everything here works. But if you want to change radio, or if you want to change ESC, or if you have the ESC fail, the receivers rarely fail unless you get water or something in them. But if either of these components fail, you're out a controller, receiver, and ESC all at once. So between that and not being able to just modify it as you please without having to address all three components, that can cost you in the long run. And I mean, in manufacturing costs, they probably saved $2 doing this, if that. So I'd really wish they'd get away from doing that. My only other real notes are right out of the box. I thought I was missing a body clip, or there was something underneath that needed to be unclipped to get the body off. Just couldn't get the body off, and didn't want to pull hard enough that I thought I was going to break it. What it turned out being is right here, and if you get one new, you'll notice it's not trimmed like this. What I did is, if you look right here, there's a step where that stops the body from going down, and then the body clip obviously goes on top. That lip, this Lexan was going underneath there, so when you pushed it on, this Lexan flexed out and then snapped underneath that lip, making it like the body felt like it was bolted on. It just felt like you were going to break something. Fairly easy fix. Took an X-Acto knife and just carefully trimmed this until it cleared to where I can lift this on and off with no problems. It just did that on both sides. Totally fixed the problem. I did that before I even pulled the body off all the way for the first time because I realized what was going on. So I started trimming that, and then I started pulling it up, and I couldn't get the front up. And I was looking underneath the front, didn't see anything out of the normal in the front, and nothing catching. And I started messing with it before I'd even looked into it. Well, Force RC thought they were going to be crafty and make a hinging body. That's where this little piece comes into play. This was bolted in here, and then this bolts to the chassis, the nose of the bumper mounts up here. So it's supposed to be a convenience feature where you pull the body clips out and then you fold the body up. Most companies do that to eliminate a couple of the body clips so you can quickly do the body. This one still has 4 body clips, so the only thing this does is create an irritating thing because it's not just a pivot. It's like double hinged, so you gotta wiggle it and mess around with it, and then when you get it up, while you're trying to do something, the body is stuck in your way all the time. So right out of the box, do yourself a favor, unbolt this from the body of the chassis, forget it ever existed. Just get rid of it. So with those 2 modifications to the body easy to go on, and you got your 4 body clips. Easy to go on. You got to flex the body out a little bit because it sticks on the chassis, but you get it down over the post and you put the body clips on like any normal truck. And you're done. You got to change the battery or whatever. Pull the body off. You're good. Just do those 2 modifications and it'll save you from throwing this thing in the creek with frustration. That pretty much covers what my experiences with it so far. Like I said, I already purchased these to fix the front end, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that back together. We're gonna adjust the dual rate on the steering, try and limit that, and see if that is the easy fix for eliminating the front end issue. So I will post a backup video covering the basics of that. I think that's pretty much it. And basically, I mean, I bought this for my girlfriend so she would have a truck to run, because she would always grab one of my cars and come out and drive with me, and she likes doing it, but she's not going to be super into it. So I figured for $130, can't go wrong. And she doesn't get super aggressive with the driving, as you'll see or have already seen in the video. So it doesn't take much to break these without doing that modification. So that pretty much covers it. If you guys have any questions, comment in the comment section below, and I will try to answer them as fast as I can. All right, thanks a lot. And subscribe.